Hello and welcome to FPL Malvo. My name is Andy and it's my team selection video ahead of Game Week 21 for you today. I didn't record a video last week because Christmas. So I'll catch you up at where my team is up to. There's also a huge amount of things going on in FPL over the next few game weeks. So I'm going to go through some of the key questions. They'll all be time-stamped as well. So if you want to skip straight to them and miss all of the bits about my team, feel free to do so. Finally, as well, I'll go through my transfer plans for next week. But for those who are sticking around for the full video, let's get started. So, very quickly, this is my game week 19, 42 points. It was a slight red arrow, almost nothing, to be honest. I think it was like 1 or 2k. Very annoyed that Raya saved a penalty in the last minute because I think he was on like a 1-pointer. And also Salah as captain didn't work out for me. I was so close to going Alvarez. Yeah, it should have stuck with my gut on that one, really. My transfer was Son out for Richarlison, which I did because I knew I wanted to go to Son in like 2 game weeks anyway. I also wanted to bring in Jared Bowen, and he was likely to be my Salah replacement. And I thought that Haaland was going to be back for the following game week. So selling Son gave me enough money to get Jared Bowen and Haaland in for Salah and Alvarez. That backfired as a plan, but we'll see that in a second. Yeah, not a terrible game week, but very little difference to my overall rank. So actually, it was fairly decent game week for me to skip a video on because it wasn't that exciting. And then last week, so last week was a big red arrow for me, and it was a big red arrow for one reason, which was Cole Palmer, who I benched. So I did bring in Jared Bowen. I ended up bringing him in for Gordon because of the news that Haaland was likely to be out longer than expected. Now, first of all, my defence was absolutely terrible. Arsenal's defence, going for the double up, has really not worked out for me. I've got bigger priorities in my team, so I'll be sticking with it for a little while. But yeah, they've looked shakier than they've looked all season, really. Nothing for Trent as well. That was really disappointing. And to find out they picked up an injury in that match as well. Yeah, it's a real shame on that. Onto the midfield, all performed pretty well. Jared Bowen only getting a 3-pointer, but all the rest came in with attacking returns. The captaincy on Salah worked out for me. When he missed that penalty early on, I was feeling pretty devastated. And then strike force again, like Alvarez keeps chipping in, really. He's not getting Haaland-style returns as Haaland's replacement, but he's making a bit of a mockery of his price. So happy with that. 2 assists for Watkins. If he's not scoring, I'm happy with the assists. Nothing for Solanke, but he's a bit of an enabler, really, in my team, and he's been very good for me, so not going to complain there. But yeah, it's the bench, really. If I hadn't have sold Gordon for Bowen, I would have benched Gordon instead of Palmer. I didn't like benching Palmer. I just thought all of my options looked pretty good this week. And yeah, I benched the best one. It was fairly devastating for me, to be honest. Lesson learned, keep Palmer in the first team. And then the goalkeeper situation. I mean, we had Raya saving a penalty last week. Dubravka, I think they conceded 4 goals, was it, against Newcastle? And yeah, penalty save and just ridiculous amount of save points. It sounded like he was outstanding in that match and still conceded 4. Yeah, you got to roll with the punches on that one. If I make that decision, just 10 times out of 10, I'm still putting Raya in. They had a much better fixture. Newcastle's defence has been poor recently. Yeah, it is one of them. Yeah, I don't think you can beat yourself up if all your reasoning for a decision you think is right and you stand by it and you just don't get the result out of it. That's kind of FPL. And I think if you make the right decision constantly, yeah, sometimes it'll still go against you, but most of the time it'll come good for you. But we're, still in a good place. 64k. It is a big red arrow, but there's not a massive amount between kind of 30 60k. It is catchable in 1 game week, so I'm not too worried about that. 2 free transfers. I've also got $1 million in the bank, but as I said in the intro, there is a huge amount going on in FPL. So I want to talk about some of the sort of key issues before we have a look at how I'm shaping up for game week 21. So here's some of the kind of key questions. First of all, Son and Salah. I mean, you can apply this to other people who've gone to AFCON. There isn't anyone who's anywhere near as highly owned as those two or as big a hitter. But yeah, that's certainly like Anana, maybe Kudos from West Ham. There's a few others who have gone. But yeah, Son and Salah, I think so. Both teams are likely to do well in AFCON for Salah with Egypt and Son in the Asia Cup. If they get through to the semi-final or final, then really you're looking around sort of game week 25, game week 26 for either of those to come back. Now, if you've got a lot of money tied up in one or another of those players, and I can see you wanting to put off selling them, I would say that at the very least, if you own both of them, then you can only hold on to one of them. So I'd say whichever one you have the most money tied up in, hold on to them. For me, I've already sold Son. I sold him before. I didn't have much money tied up in him either because I had him for quite a short period of time. Salah, I've got a lot of money tied up in him, but he's my way of getting back to Haaland. So Salah will go from my team. I don't think it's worth benching him for the hope that he maybe comes back in sort of 2 or 3 game weeks instead of like 5 game weeks. So yeah, for me, I think in 90% of circumstances, you're going to be better off selling them and spreading that money a little bit. Just have an idea of how you're going to get them back into your team. And I'll talk about that a little bit more with the blank and the double game weeks. Haaland. Now, I don't own Haaland. I think if you've held him for this long, then you've obviously got to hold him. I think he wasn't on the bench against Huddersfield. I was really hoping he was. If he was on the bench, then even if he didn't come on, if he was fit enough for the bench, then I probably would have brought him back in this week. The only way that I'm going to bring him back into my team this week is if Pep says in his press conference on Friday that Haaland's 100% fit and he's back with the squad and he's in contention to play. And I will probably bring him in and I will probably captain him. Unless I get absolute clarity, then I'm not going to captain him because I'm not going to, take that risk on that. And if I'm not going to captain him, then I'm not going to bring him into my team at all. Because I think, he's had a little spell out, and I think the most likely thing is that he either starts and he comes off at half time, or he only comes on for the last 30 minutes, say. And yeah, of course, he's Haaland, it can devastate a team in that time, but it's not worth it. He's the most expensive player in the game. He's not worth that money to me, I don't think. So yeah, unless Pep gives 100% clarification, I don't think he's worth bringing in this week unless you own him. That said, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he either started or came off the bench. I think he's very close to fitness again. I think maybe if that Huddersfield game had been a Premiership team, I don't know. I think there's a possibility we might have seen him. Trent and Bowen. So they sound quite similar injuries situation, to be honest. I think the things I've read contradictory things on Bowen. I read sort of 2 to 3 weeks, and I read that it'd be a little bit longer, sort of 4 to 6 weeks. Either way, Bowen I think is more difficult than Trent for me personally, because if I just brought Bowen in, I don't have money tied up in him, so I could easily just sell him. The thing is, with the winter break, so if you don't know, half the teams are playing this weekend in this game week, and the other half playing next weekend in this game week, so that each team has 2 weeks off. In principle, it doesn't work like that because there's Carabao Cup and FA Cup replays in that time, so a lot of teams don't get a break. But West Ham are playing in the second game week, which means the second week, it's second game week. But it means that Jared Bowen actually, like, if it's 2 to 3 weeks that they're talking about, well, he's going to have had that 2 weeks pretty much, like, just shy of by the time, like, in game week 21. So I think there's a small chance that he just plays in it. And at worst, he's probably going to miss one more game. Like, he'd been back the following game week, most likely. Whereas with Trent, I mean, it's kind of similar game week wise. Like he could be back for 22. It's probably more likely that it's going to be 23. For me, I've got a lot of money tied up in Trent. Like he's gone up quite considerably. Also, I want Trent for the long term. I'm not saying he's like a season hold or anything for me. But my instant reaction when I heard about the injury was I do want Estepinian in my team. He's one defender that I'd really love to own. So my first thought was, well, I'll just sell him and I'll get Estepinian. But because of all the potential blanks and double game weeks coming up, I really want to hold on to that extra transfer. I've got 2 free transfers, but I don't really want to waste one on Trent and then another one on bringing Trent back in. So I think for me, I'm only going to use one transfer this week, and I think I'm going to hold on to Trent, and I'm probably going to hold on to Bowen as well, because if you've got Son or you've got Salah, well, they're definitely going to be out for this game week and the next game week and probably the one after that. And then, it could be anywhere between being back immediately after, game week 23, or it could be like 25, 26. So I think it, as a priority, should be selling Son and Salah and just holding Trent and Bowen and kind of hoping that they're back sooner. I know there's other injured players. I've mentioned the ones that, I own or very highly owned, but yeah, so it's a case by case basis on the other players, obviously. But yeah, for those particular ones, I think it's worth holding on to Trent and Bowen and selling Son and Salah and reinvesting that money. Obviously, if you've got, Archer's an issue for Sheffield United, he's a very owned, like heavily owned bench option. Chad Taylor's out for Burnley, he's a highly owned bench option. So I get that there may be reasons why you can't just fall back onto your bench and maybe you do need to sell them. But I think with the amount of potential doubles and blanks coming up, I think you really want to hold on to your transfers where you can. So on the potential blank game weeks, so we have the Carabao Cup semi-final second leg next week. So we'll have an idea before the end of the next game week. Before the start of the next game week, where the blank is going to be or who it's going to be, more importantly. I'm sort of working off the basis that Chelsea and Liverpool get to the final. Liverpool obviously winning 2-1. I know Chelsea lost, but I still fancy them winning at home. They also missed a couple of absolute sitters in that game and really should have won it. So on that basis, they will then blank in game week 26 because that's when the final will be. Now, it means that as well as your Chelsea and Liverpool players, you'll also be missing Tottenham players, most importantly, because they're the team that's playing Liverpool. I've actually forgotten who Chelsea are playing, but they were the key ones for me that I was looking at. So the reason I want to save onto my transfers is that, yes, you can free hit in that week, but there will be big double and blank game weeks later on in the season because of the FA Cup. And yeah, Tottenham, Chelsea and Liverpool players, like I've got a lot in my team. So it may well be that I try and negotiate that with transfers. So holding on to them as long as possible, could be really key. And of course, with those matches being cancelled, it's likely that there'll be double game weeks in there. And as I understand it, because Liverpool obviously have European competition as well, so in the FA Cup, it means that I think it's likely that the Premier League will want to put that game in as soon as possible before midweek game week just go. Like there isn't any space to get that fixture in. The thing that looks the likeliest is game week 25, apparently. Now, if Salah was likely to be back for that, everyone would want Salah in as their captain. But then he will blank in game week 26. So yeah, I think as many like free transfers, I'm just going to constantly try and keep 2 free transfers so that I can plan and deal for this. And it will be in the next game week that I look at dealing with it because we should have more information then. Like we'll definitely know who's going to be in the final of the Carabao Cup. We also should have some like concrete idea of when those double game weeks are going to be put in. Don't forget as well that we've still got Man City and Brentford to go in. And again, game week 25 has been mooted as a like strong possibility for that game week to happen. So yeah, my advice is basically keep an eye on it because we should get way more information next week. If you can manage to save a transfer this week, I know a lot of people have injuries, but I think it would be absolutely key. I think as soon as we have a bit more of that information, you know which teams you want to be targeting, you can really set yourself up going forward. So finally, this is how my team is shaping up for this week. Now, I said I was looking at selling Trent, talked myself out of it. I think it's more important to hold on to that transfer. So my defence would be the two Arsenal boys, Ray in goal and Gabriel at centre-back. Don't mind that at all, to be honest, that Crystal Palace fixture. Pedro Porro, Man United away. Porro is going to become a worse option soon. As soon as James Maddison's back, he's going to take over free kicks and corners. And Porro won't be as brilliant an option as he's been. However, he is still excellent. So for now, Man United, not the easiest fixture in the world, but yeah, I still fancy that he can get attacking return in that one. Consul would have been the one that I would have benched had Trent have been fit, but I don't mind it for the Villa game. I'm not convinced about a clean sheet there, but I'm not. Sorry for the Everton game, but I'm not convinced for a clean sheet for either way. So I'm going to keep Conte over Branthwaite because Villa are a better team than Everton, or at least have been so far this season. The midfield, so Richarlison, I know they're signed Tino Werner, but I think it's more likely that he'll play out on that left-hand side and kind of be a backup for, well, be cover for Son now, but also a kind of backup for Richarlison as well. That's my guess. I don't know that for sure, but we'll have to see. If Richarlison's place is in doubt, then yeah, I would look at moving him on, but for now, happy with him. Cole Palmer and Saka. At the moment, I've got the armband on Saka. Not happy about that at all because I've not been happy with his form for the last few weeks. I might just move on to Cole Palmer. I don't know. If I knew that Haaland was out, I would go with Alvarez, but because I think Haaland might play some of that game, I'm not even sure that Alvarez is going to start because Foden's been so good in that 10 role in the last couple of game weeks. So, yeah, at the moment, it's on Saka. I don't know. Might move it to Palmer. There's no one else that I'm massively considering, I don't think. Bowen, I'm going to start for that Sheffield United fixture. If he doesn't play, it means that Solanke will come off my bench. Don't mind that at all. Liverpool, decent defence and a very good team, and I think they'll win that game. But Bournemouth have looked really good going forward recently. In fact, Bournemouth have just looked really good recently. So, and Solanke tends to be involved when they play well. So if Solanke comes in, not the end of the world for me. Salah's still in my first team because my one transfer this week will be used on Mo Salah. Lastly, Alvarez and Watkins up front. Let's hope they just continue. Like I say, Alvarez, I think he's probably going to be the one that will make way for Haaland for me. But as long as Haaland's not back, I keep squeezing those points out. Newcastle's defence has been as bad as anyone's really recently. I know they've got players back, but still think that might be a good fixture. In terms of Salah, so I've got a couple of options. I think I'm probably going to go for Phil Foden. It feels like a weird time to bring him in. The reason that I'm looking at Foden, even though Kevin De Bruyne has just come back and is the biggest threat to his place, is that I don't think Kev will start against Newcastle. And I think he'll, even when he's starting, Foden's played every game this season for Man City in the league. He's been absolute go-to, whether it's been out on the right-hand side or it's been centrally. And he's been fantastic the last month. So I don't see that Foden's going to get dropped, even with Kev back. It might be that they play together in the middle. It might be that it gets shunted back out wide. I don't know. But I think Pep will find a place for him because he's earned that spot. And I think they will play it really, really soft with Kev as well. I think it'd be a long time until he's getting 90 minutes every week. So, yeah, I'm very tempted by Foden. The other thing is that Man City, well, I spoke about Liverpool potentially having a double, being blanks for Tottenham and teams like that. Whereas City have definitely got a double coming up. And for the same reason as Liverpool, fixture congestion being an issue later on in the season, I would have thought the Premier League will need to get it in fairly soon. I've got one City player, so I don't mind doubling up on the City attack at all. And in fact, I would look at potentially getting a defender in if that double game week is announced soon. So yeah, Foden's one I'm really looking at. There's a couple of other options for me. Michael Elise, I kind of wanted, apart from the fact I think he's a very good player. He gives me enough money that I can go Haaland to Alvarez in one move. I don't have to look at taking money out of my team somewhere else. However, he's picked up a hamstring injury, so he's not an option for me. There were cheaper options that I kind of like. Pascal Gross as well, I like at Brighton. He becomes more of a key man with the injuries that they've got. He's on a lot of set pieces. And Brighton's fixtures are almost the best in the league over the next few. But nobody has convinced me enough, I don't think, Foden. So yeah, I'm just waiting for that press conference really from Pep to hear news on Haaland, and then I'll be pulling the trigger on that move for Foden. And the only thing I really need to do then is commit to a captain. I think there is no standout option this week, so take a punt. So that's it for my team selection video ahead of Game Week 21. If you've enjoyed this video or you found anything useful in it, then give it a like and subscribe to the channel. It's always appreciated when you do that. And I'll see you again next week on another video.